Okay, so we are going to get started. A few just minor things. One, because I'm recording this, we are kind of tied to this spot, which is good. I'm usually a pacer, so it's going to keep me right here. Two, I am going to email out by Monday the recording of this as well as the PowerPoint because there might just be questions that come up later. I think in this unprecedented time, I don't want you guys to feel like you didn't get your questions answered. You will have, you'll see in a minute, kind of your own students, people, counselor, social worker, and dean. But just for a point of reference, until school starts, we can be your people. So in the email I send out will be the video, the PowerPoint, and then our contact information. We will go as quickly as we can through this. It should take us about 40 minutes. At the end then is all questions. So if you can hold your questions to the end, those of you who have to leave, we're okay with that. But those that have some questions will stick around. Okay? So to start with, my name is Missy Berg, and I am one of the counselors here at PR.
And I'm Amy Langland. I am one of the deans here at Prairie. And on the back of your sheet, you'll see there's a spot that if you have questions while we're talking, you can write down your questions to keep them in your mind as we're going through things.
And real quick, to show of hands, who has a freshman starting here? Most of you. Okay, so everybody. Okay. And anybody have older children who also attend? Okay, first time and freshmen. Okay, here we go. So pop quiz for the night. What is PR's mascot? Wolf. Good. What about the school colors? And I want to start with, most of the time we have black on. It is not black. What are the two school colors? Anybody else got a guess? I say that all the time. Maroon and silver. I know, but I always say that. It's great. Most of our clothes is gray and black. So, what about name one class that your student, or if you know, will need to take by the time they graduate? Yep, U.S. history is going to be that junior year requirement. We'll definitely have to take that. Name one sport or activity offered at PR. Football, which is now a spring sport. Yeah. And then anybody able to name one person, a specific name, who will be a support for your student here at Prairie Ridge? Anybody already know the counselor, the dean, the social worker, teacher? We did get to meet, which is nice. Okay, so good. This is a big one that's going to come out of tonight. As you see the one side of your sheet, you'll see those are kind of broken down by alphabet, your students' people here, and we'll kind of go through that. Why you're here tonight, there's not a lot of dads out there, but I always like to make the joke, did your wife drag you, or are you here willingly? Hopefully you're here, kind of like that email indicated. I want you to know when you leave here kind of the academic and support teams that you guys have here at Prairie Ridge, especially in this time when you won't get that face-to-face contact yet, hopefully soon. I want to make sure you guys leave here knowing who those teams are. And then we'll kind of go through just the basic policies, procedures, day-to-day things at Prairie Ridge, which some will look a little different right now, and we'll kind of review those things, but also when they return to the building. And then we're really just here to answer your guys' questions. So at Prairie Ridge, I kind of say we break it into, every student has kind of their support team, which will stay constant for 4 years, and that's the big difference, and then their academic team. Depending on the classes they take, the teachers they have, that academic team is going to change. That support team is going to include a school counselor, the social worker, dean, and nurse. And we work in those small groups once a week right now, probably more than once a week, to constantly talk about and for your student. Hey, how are things going? So we'll look at things like attendance and engagement and grades and anything else that's going on. You guys share things with us. So that's your student small team. That team will remain for all 4 years. What I like about my job is by the time your student graduates, I really know your student. The academic team is going to be those teachers, and then for every class taught, there's kind of a boss, a division leader of that, as well as different support periods when they're back in the building. When they're in the building, we offer kind of breakout sessions if they're struggling in math, if they're struggling in English, if they need some kind of student study supports. There's these different levels of supports there. The one thing I always like to emphasize here, and we'll talk about it in a little bit as well, when a student struggles in a class, and we look at you guys to say, it's going to happen. I hope it happens because that means we're teaching you something you don't already know. But when a student struggles in a class, a lot of times, because I'm the constant, I will have that student or parent email me saying, hey, I'm struggling in math. What do I need to do? What I'm going to do is refer to that academic team. I'm awful in math. Your student wants nothing to do with me in math. That academic team, they see them on a daily basis, even if it's virtually. They know both of the curriculum and your students' study habits, motivation, how often they're answering questions and things like this. So they're going to be that main contact. So if a student is struggling in a specific class, we're going to refer to this academic team for those supports. Flip side of it, my student is struggling as a student, all 4 classes, plus his elective, he's struggling to engage, and there's this bigger picture, that's me. And I always like to say that support team, because it stays constant, always start with us. We will get you where you need to go. That last thing I would like to mention is every day your student has access to a support team and an academic team. There are also these other great resources in the building that we might need to tap into. The school psychologist. Sometimes if a student is on a 504 or an IEP, they will have case managers and additional support there. And then the administration, the vice principal and principal. I was just going to say any questions, but I can't. So on the one sheet, you guys will see, we just break it down by alphabet. That is your student counselor for all 4 years here at Prairie Ridge. We do the same thing with the dean and the social worker. And again, like that previous slide, what's nice there is the dean, social worker, and counselor have constant communication about your student and what's going on. So it's a great small group effort. In general, and students are always surprised at this, teachers often will say to students, hey, here's my curriculum, my syllabus. This is what we're going to cover for the year. Same thing with your support team. We have proactive intentions with your student. Freshman year is really, and I'm sorry to do this remotely, but about that exploration and figuring out interests, activities. How do I get involved? I want to try some different electives. It's an exploration year. We can still do this. It just looks a little different. Sophomore year is really a lot spent on this career development. So based on these things I know about myself, the strengths and the interests, we're going to start that conversation about careers. Not the exact job they're going to have, just these general career clusters. Junior year, kind of how will I get there? So if this is my strengths, my interests, here's some career interests I have, how am I going to get there? And that's a lot of junior year planning, trying out careers, job shadowing, talking to people who do it, eventually looking at colleges or trades that offer those kind of programs. And then senior year is all about kind of finalizing those plans. Freshman, sophomore, junior year, there are 4 intentional times where counselors and then also the social worker will come in and do lessons with students. We are going to do these virtually, so they're not going to lose out on these. And I always emphasize this isn't to replace individual attention. It's just the opposite. It's kind of what I say is my public relations. I go into that classroom to say, hey, think about these things so that hopefully that student goes home to you and you have questions. And especially that student leaves there and says, I want to follow up with my counselor, I have more questions. So it's the way we get that information out there. In regards to your support team, there's kind of 3 main areas we work with a student: academically, career, and then that social emotional. And I always want to emphasize we are very intentional of doing a lot of proactive services. We will be in the classroom. This year it's going to be a lot through the PE, the wellness curriculum. We will also do kind of smaller breakout sessions with groups of students, depending on things. And then we do that responsive. You are our eyes and ears. For a student who I don't know yet, we've got a little glimpse of them in an academic setting remotely, so we're going to rely on you guys if we're losing them. And this could be academically, this could be study skills, this could be stressors that are going on at home, it could be the world we live in right now. So if you have concerns, we're relying on you because for those responsive services, that's going to be more of the individual or very small group attention. Academic advising, this is probably what you think of counselors the most. In that academic setting, we will always do scheduling. So hopefully when you guys came through and you picked up your schedules today, you guys came with your kids, if you had any questions, you stopped at our table. We said, for the first time in 16 years, I was bored at that table. There just wasn't the questions. So hopefully that meant that we did the schedules right. But if a student is in a class and they realize, hey, I don't want to go on in this, if they have questions, they will always work with their counselor in scheduling. The nice thing at Prairie Ridge, your student will always do one-on-one scheduling for that next year. It's crazy. It's near the end of first semester, beginning of second semester, but we will always meet with your students that we know we are individually advising them. In regards to credits, anybody know that magic number for your kid to get out of here? It's a crazy number. Do you guys know yet? So see, when we quiz you, you're going to know this one, 20.25. So typically a student is going to earn 5.25, 5.5 credits per semester if they have band or choir or some of these extra things. So they will have more than enough credits to graduate. But it's the counselor's job each time we meet with them to make sure we're kind of checking those things off and you guys will have enough credits to graduate. We do this earlier than you guys would want, but I'll explain why. We do four-year planning with freshmen right away just because we want to give them this overall map that's going to change a million times of how will I graduate. Every time we meet with them, we look them in the eye and we say, we know you're going to graduate. That's not our concern. We have a very high graduation rate. We want to make sure your student's using these 4 years to get where they want to go. So we have a bare minimum, but how am I going to get those classes in there for your student so they can try different things out and move to the direction that they would like to go. Transcripts and GPA, anybody know what a transcript is? Transcript is that permanent record. So I always tell the freshmen, you guys come in with these thick folders, pictures from kindergarten that are really cute, attendance, and little pictures you drew in this, and all this information. Really, when you're in high school, the only thing that leaves with you is that one sheet of paper, which is called a transcript. Every class they took in high school, their semester grades only, that GPA, no test scores on there, and no rank on there. The way I look at GPA and rank, I always say GPA is your personal best. A rank is me comparing you to others, which we don't need to do. So that GPA is a reflection of who you are as a student by the time you leave here. Driver's ed, how about my two freshmen in here? Do you know when you can take driver's ed in the high school? What age or what grade? That'd be great. You guys would like that. So sophomore year, as long as you are 15, by May 1st of your freshman year, you are eligible for that summer school program or taking it in a year after. That's a family decision. When a counselor meets with the student, we will talk about it, but they will also go home and talk to you guys and you can let us know. With driver's ed, the state requirement says they just have to take the classroom. They have to learn those rules of the road because they're going to be a pedestrian or a skateboarder or a biker. So they have to take the class. Whether they do behind the wheel and learn how to drive is totally up to you guys. You can take it at Prairie Ridge. You can also take it privately.
What if they're not 15 by May 1st?
So that's all three of my children are youngins. So then they can get it in their sophomore year or after. It's just those 15 by May 1st get the advantage of taking summer school. Summer school driver's ed is 4 weeks and they're done. Very nice, smooth, easy. Summer school. Summer school, most of our classes are remedial. If a student struggles in a class, then counselor will meet and will communicate with you guys, hey, we're recommending the summer school. There are some what we call getting ahead summer school classes. Big ones are driver's ed, also US history, visual art and tech, which is a computer credit, and consumer ed, which is that money management class. So every time you meet with your student, if there's a student who have all these electives and these interests, I might advise them, hey, are you able to do any of this over the summer so we can get some of it out of the way? So we'll talk to them about that. Again, kind of in that support team, academic team, number one thing that I get from a kid is, hey, I need some help, Mrs. Bergen, math. Remember, I'm going to refer back to that academic team. So a counselor, social worker, dean, kind of overall picture here, but specific things we're going to want that academic team interacting with your students. Second area is the career planning, which is such a fun part of our job. Really, all I want you guys to know right now is we have an intentional curriculum. We will do this proactively with your student. We use a portfolio called Naviance. Your student will be introduced to this very shortly, where we just start to do a few little assessments. And really how I look at it is it's this portfolio that you have access to, your student has access to, and the counselor has access to help in that individual planning for where they're going to go. There's a section called About Me, and this is really where we focus freshman year, interest inventories and things like that. With sophomore year, it's that career exploration, so there's several different inventories we can do in there, and we get a general cluster of interest where your student is. And then there's courses. Each year we will go back into this and update that 4-year plan. So we kind of say, freshman year, we're just going to map out with them, how do I get out of here? You know, what are these requirements that have to get done? sophomore year, we're going to go back in and after those career assessments say, hey, here's how you're going to get out of here. We're probably going to have to tweak that. But how do we get all these things in here to try this career and see where these electives will fall? So we redo it again and again. Junior year, we'll visit it again, finally into that senior year. And then that college part, I always tell students, first lesson we do with them, when we say college, that is not 4-year school exclusive. When I say college, that's any education and training after high school. There's not really a job out there right now that doesn't need some kind of education and training. So we use this program to help students just play around with, if this is the career I want to go into, what would an 18-month degree get me? What would a 2-year degree get me? What would a 4-year degree get me? And then some. And so they're just exploring what are those different educational opportunities. You guys will get information about Naviance as we go forward in the 4 years. And lastly, in that college part is kind of how we'll send your kid off to that next step. All the paperwork will go through Naviance. Testing, I never spend much time on here. What I like to say about testing is in a typical year, your student will take a fall and a spring PSAT, practice SAT, ultimately getting to that junior year where the state pays for your student to take an SAT. The way I like to look at testing, in most of the junior highs, they have switched to that wording of formative and summative. In high school, we use formative and summative. So formative is the homework. If you're an athlete or a musician, that's the practice. Summative is your performance, or ultimately the test, the quiz, the speech. So the way I look at testing is we're going to give them 5 practices, 5 formatives leading up to that summative their junior year. Fun part of our job, even though testing is not, is each year we will do a lesson with the students where only the student kind of sees, where's my GPA right now? Where's my test score right now? Based off of the career plans I have for myself, am I on track? And we have that conversation with them because if they're not quite on track, what do we need to do to get there? And we'll be intentional planning that.
Do they have to be ACT anymore?
No, and this is always a great conversation. I just created a little Padlet for juniors and seniors to kind of refer to. Really, ACT and SAT is only to do with who made the test and who wants to pay for it. So ACT traditionally was in the Midwest because it was invented in Iowa. Illinois has switched to the SAT. So they, a few years ago, switched to your student, it doesn't matter what they take. There's a concordance chart. There's not a college out there that says, I need this score. They'll just change it into the SAT or ACT score that they want. The only thing I will talk juniors through is if you're a student, you've had these practice SATs and you take the SAT, you know where you're going to fall by then because you've seen all these practices. If a student is not a strong math student, which I'm not picking on anybody, that was definitely me, there is an advantage to the ACT because only a quarter of the test is math, where SAT half of it is. So there's just some small logistics that we can help guide a student if they feel like they may score higher on one rather than the other. And even though the state pays for a student to take one free here, we can walk them through how they would register for one. College and Career Center, in addition to the support team, the counselor and the social worker and the dean who work with our students, we also have a College and Career Center. So a student can get a little extra guidance. It's a drop-in, there's a coordinator in there if they're looking for specific colleges, majors, if they want to go directly into the workforce, some of the relationships we have in the community. We always bring in college reps, and what's going to be a little interesting this fall, most of them are going to have to remain virtual, but hopefully by the spring and certainly sophomore, junior, and senior year, the college reps will set up, if it's a big group in the theater, if it's a small group just at a table or in a classroom, and it's the opportunity for your student to ask some questions to that rep to see if that's a school they might want to go visit. We also do a tech and trade fair every February. It takes up this whole space out here and in here, over 80 different booths of educational opportunities where maybe a student doesn't need a 4-year degree. So there's a lot of resources we bring into the building to help students. We will encourage freshmen and sophomores to have these conversations because what I always say is this is the exploratory time, not the decision time. That's when we want them talking. We also bring in a college panel in December. So a group of students will sit up here with different plans in different areas of their life to kind of talk through to the students how did they get there and what advice they would have. And the College and Career Center coordinator will also come into the classrooms and do some lessons with them. The last area for me to talk about is that social emotional counseling. Again, a little interesting this year. However, we will still be providing these supports. They probably will just most likely be more through a Google Meet until we could meet physically with small groups. That social emotional support, a lot of it is as needed. So we will always do individual counseling with a student as needed. We can see a student up to 5 times before we're going to have to look at, is this ongoing? Should I refer out? Is there a small group I can put this person in? Group counseling here at Prairie Ridge, we're really intentional of doing 6 to 9 week skill-based groups. So if we find a student is struggling with something specific, we might then add in a group. That group's purpose is to build that skill, give the student the opportunity to go practice it, and kind of report back until they feel like they've got it. There's also what we call triage. When students return to the building, which let's hope is sooner than later, but when they return to the building, student services is always open, and there is always a support team member kind of on duty. So if a student just got a bad test grade back, and I don't even want to go into the lunchroom, I need to process this. If a student has something going on at home or with peers or a relationship, something's going on, and right now I need to talk to someone, they would just come to student services, no questions asked. We do their attendance. They will first say, hey, is your counselor available? Because hopefully we've got a relationship with them. If we're not available, then they're going to tap the social worker. Let's see if your social worker is available. But if not, there's always one member available. So each period of the day we've got covered, so somebody always has somebody to talk to. Referrals and resources, this is a big part of our job, to respect the student's privacy and yours. Some families will reach out and say, hey, we've got some things going on. He really wants to talk to someone, but we'd rather be outside of school, and we're a great resource for that. And then the social workers also do come in proactively and do lessons at each grade level. A lot about freshman year is really that communication and decision making, but each grade level there will be a proactive kind of, hey, here's who we are, so that again, public relation wise, they might follow up with questions. This is again on your sheet, just the breakdown of the social workers and then the school nurse. And with that, I will hand it over.
Okay, I just want to touch base on one thing that Mrs. Berg said in regards to that triage, so that you know that the communication between the teams is really good. So any student that is seen in triage, not by their individual team, we are made aware that that student went to triage and what the reason was. So that doesn't not get left off from their individual team, even if they saw someone else. The other thing is, when we are in the building, oftentimes we have the situation where your student will call you during the passing period because they're upset, because they can use their cell phone during passing period. It is so important as a parent for you to tell them, go to student services, there's someone there to talk to you. So many times in the dean's office, I'll get kids who are wrote up for cutting class, and they say, well, I was sitting in the bathroom because I was upset. If you get a phone call and your child says, I'm in the bathroom because I'm upset, direct them to the dean's office or student services. We do not want them sitting in a bathroom because they're upset. And they'll often reach out to you as their trusted adult first. So just so you know, those are places that they can go when they're upset, and we'll make sure they get taken care of. Okay? So I'm going to touch on some of the stuff that's new. Okay? This is the first time talking about it because I know there's a lot of questions. So we pulled out some of the old stuff in regards to the schedule, what our typical schedule will look like, and I put in what that remote schedule looks like. Okay? All these next 4 slides are coming right off on the district website in regards to our Return to Learn plan that was just posted Tuesday night. So like I said, this is all brand new. But wanted you to see it and have an opportunity to ask questions, and I'll do my best to go through it. So if you see that on Mondays, we will be running all 9 periods. Okay? They're all a half hour long, and the teachers will touch base with your student on Mondays. So they will touch base with every teacher on Mondays on those assigned class times. For Tuesday through Friday, that is that block schedule. So Tuesday and Thursday are the odd periods. Wednesday and Friday are the even periods. And this is listed on the district website, the actual times and everything. But it's important for you to have that And because your student will have to log in to those classes at those specific times, because it will be synchronous. So this is the synchronous days. So that is the face-to-face time. So it's not, I'm busy at 9:30, so I'm not going to log in. I'm not going to participate in my third period English class. Okay, so that's the times they will have to be in class. You'll see those support periods. So those support periods, we have one on Monday and we have them on the Wednesday and Friday. A teacher might be available at that time or might set up an individual time to do some individual consultation with your student, or that might be a time where they talk to their counselor. Okay, so that's when people are available to work with your student on those break times. Okay, where it says live student support.
And I can have every class every day?
No. So
Just during remote learning.
just during remote learning, yeah. So Mondays they'll have the class every day, but otherwise they're block scheduled.
What's the purpose of that?
Longer in time for instruction.
That was the plan that was approved by the Board of Education. So I wasn't on the discussion team, but that's the plan that was approved Tuesday night.
How is gym class handled?
The same. I mean, it will be at
You
that
have
time.
to be there for gym class? You have to do it,
The teachers will give assignments.
how about study hall?
Study hall, you do not have to sign in for. Okay? So the study hall, lunch, those are free periods. You will not have to sign in for those. Just all the academic classes. Okay? So I'm going to kind of go through, and we can go to more questions as we go through. So the student expectations. So again, these are all on our district website, but the student expectations is that they will be required to attend all those live events scheduled on their schedule. So English class, third period, okay? As it says, they have to keep their cameras and audio on throughout the lesson until the teacher releases the class, okay? They will log on to Canvas daily, and I'm going to go into what Canvas is in a few slides, okay? And be required to complete their assignments. All school policies apply, including the technology rules, okay? So that handbook, and we're gonna, as deans, we are gonna put together a video. We always go into the PE classes and do a handbook presentation every year for all grade levels. We will be doing that virtually, that the students will still get that presentation in their PE class that first week of school, so that we will review the handbook rules, so they're aware of that while they're on that remote learning. They may receive, this word asynchronous instruction on their off day. So let's say they don't have in-person class, face-to-face class, on Tuesday because it's the odd period. So then the teacher may give them assignment to do though on that off day. So they don't have to be face-to-face every day with that class, but the teacher may give an assignment for that off day. So don't think, oh, I don't have to check my English class because I don't have it today. They might get an assignment on that day, which is why we say check that Canvas every day. The kids, this is the hardest part when we went through, and I don't know what your experiences were with your e-learning in the spring, but it's so important that the kids communicate to the teachers if they're struggling, if there's technology issues, if they don't understand how that program works. They have to reach out to the teachers first, and then reach out to us. We don't want anyone to get lost during this. It's not a good situation for anybody, but we want to do our best to make sure everyone gets the best education they can.
So if we have to have our audio on, is your audio going to be like all the other kids in the class can hear it too?
Well, it's going to be based on what the teacher's direction. So the biggest thing is that we want the students to participate. So the teacher might turn everybody's audio off. while they're lecturing and just say, leave the cameras up. So, and that's why it says that, unless released by the teacher. So the teacher is going to be able to control some of those things.
I'm sorry, because I'm gonna have my boys and I all share an office. So like, I'll be making phone calls to things in school.
Yeah, a lot of earbuds.
It'll just be, I just don't wanna cause disruption.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something that we'll be working out. And the teachers will, like I said, will guide that. So these are the parent expectations. Again, this is from the district website. But really to encourage your students to complete all these assignments. I know in the spring things weren't counted and, you can do it, you don't do it. Everything counts now. Okay, so it's not, this doesn't count. The students' work does count. It is going to change their grade. It is going to create their grade. So we really need your support to make sure that they're doing that. We are taking attendance. So if by chance you are going to go on a vacation or your child is too sick to participate in that day's synchronous learning, you still need to call into the building to our attendance line and say, Johnny is sick and will be unable to participate in his learning today or in class today. And then we use the excused absence. And I'm going to go through the attendance piece in a little bit. But you do need to call out if they are unable to do their online learning that day. And also vacation. And I'll go through that a little bit more. If they're sick, but they can still work on their schoolwork, and you're concerned, like if there is something in regards to COVID, that type of thing, we do ask you to call our nurse so that we can, because we are going to be tracking things to make sure, especially if you're a fall athlete or anything like that. So if there are symptoms that you are concerned about, if you could just call our nurse for that, and she'll be keeping a record of that, and that will be her private thing with you. Okay. You brought this up, but that fourth bullet is important, and Missy's going to talk about it later too. But consider the appropriate place for them to work. You know the schedule, you know when they're going to have to be online. So where's the best place for them to do that work, where they can get it done? And really, like I said before, we need your support. Your child needs the support. It's a tough situation for everybody, and we're going to do the best we can together as a team. Okay, that last part, which is hard to see, and if you go on the district website, you can see it better, but it really addresses the fact that we really encourage people not to videotape what's going on live, in the classroom, so that the teacher's not videotaped while she's doing a lesson. We don't allow that in school, and it's something that we really don't want to happen outside of school. And with everybody with technology, it's a lot easier to do. But we really don't want that type of thing to happen. And then you got screenshots and people posting things on social media. So that's something we really are encouraging not to do, and it's something we'll address with our students too. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Yeah, there's some lessons that will be reviewed. Yeah. Okay, so these are the teacher expectations, so you're aware of that too. Again, that they will take attendance daily. All the assignments are going to be in Canvas and updated weekly, and Canvas then will synchronize to Skyward, and I'm going to explain those two in the next slide. But all the grades, again, will go first to Canvas and then to Skyward, so everyone will be able to see them. They cannot require face-to-face instruction outside of that class time. So it can't be required. So I can't say, if I'm teaching English and you're in my class, I can't say, you have to log in at 3 o'clock because I'm going to do a special lesson. So it needs, because we want kids to stay with their set schedule. Okay, so you shouldn't have extraneous. If things are outside of that time, it would be volunteer or support period. Okay, like I would like you to come to support period to get some extra tutoring. Okay, so that would be something that would be outside of the time, and that would be more support, not new instruction. Okay, That fifth bullet is something that just want you to know it's required that they provide a minimum of 30 minutes of direct live instruction. So you saw those block schedules for an hour and 10 minutes. So of that hour and 10 minutes, 30 of it would be direct instruction. So it might be teach 15 minutes, give an assignment, okay, come log back in a half hour, and we're going to discuss what you guys just went and did. Okay? So it could be broken up based on how the teacher wants it, but there should be an expectation of 30 minutes direct. Okay? I think the other stuff is pretty just general, but the bottom bullet is the other big thing. If you send a teacher an email, if it's the expectation is to respond in 24 hours. Okay, don't expect the response right away. We do expect teachers to respond to you within 24 hours. If you don't get a response within 24 hours, you can let the department's chairperson know. You can contact me, but or Ms. Kendall. But really, give the teachers 24 hours to respond to an email. Okay. Okay. Now this is the big one: Canvas versus Skyward. So Canvas is your student learning management system. So this would be even if we were in person. Okay? It is a great tool since we're remote also, but Canvas is going to be your student learning management system all 4 years. Skyward is your student check, your student database, and our student database. So that's where you will be able to see grades, you'll be able to see missing assignments, you'll be able to see attendance. So all the information about a student is on Skyward. All of you should have already received a Skyward password, hopefully, to log in. If you have difficulties logging in, or if you forget your password, or both, so anything in regards to Skyward passwords, you would contact Student Services, and our Student Service Assistant will be able to help manage with that.
How are kids supposed to learn how to get on the campus?
I'm going to go there next. Okay, so Canvas, what it's going to look like for them, and I know this is far away, they are going to get an information on how to log on to Canvas. On Friday, I believe they'll all get an email giving their Canvas login. And it's going to say this, that they're enrolled in classes that have not yet been posted. So that's what that top line says. It will say, welcome to Canvas, and that's what it will be. So they'll be able to log in. Then, once their classes are loaded, okay, which will be Monday, they will have blocks like this. That will have, each teacher will have their class. Okay, so that one says Canvas support, the first one, but so that might be English, and the next one might be biology. And they'll have these little blocks. And then they just click on that block, and that will open them up to all the information for that class. So a syllabus will be on there, their course information, teacher contact. So everything like that will be in these classes. So that is what it will look like for them. And the teachers will walk them all through it throughout.
Which email is it? Like, do they get a new email, like a D155?
They will have a D15 email. So all students have a D155 email. It is their first name dot last name at D155.
Grad year. So first name, your full
Oh,
name,
yeah.
dot, last name, and the last 2 digits of their grad year. So for these guys,
24.
at D155.
So everyone will get that information. And that's a great question about the email.
Sticker on the Chromebook.
Yeah, their email address is on their Chromebook. So that is an important thing. Okay. So look for that, and Monday things will start rolling with this Canvas, and that's for where all the student work and the teachers will all communicate through Canvas, okay, to their students. Next, this is from our website, okay, and it's important we have a parent tab on our website, and there's all these little blocks of a lot of good information. But one I want to point out to you specifically is the report a concern button. And what that does is it opens up an email, and you can type out your concern, and that sends an email automatically to all the administration. We get them on our phones, we get them on email, and that we like to use if you have any safety concerns. Um, Anything that, like you've heard something in the community or you're concerned about someone else, about a student, that, and it's an anonymous tip line. So we use it, and parents use it, students use it a lot when they're concerned about their friend, like, I'm concerned, they're really depressed, and then we take that information and we decide who's going to react to it. Okay, but it is something that we do react to, and it is a tool for you to use. And at this time, there's a lot of things, kids and struggling, something that, we encourage you to use, and we want you to know it's there. Okay, and we want you to know, to encourage your student to use it. If they come to you and say, I'm really concerned that so-and-so is getting bullied, but I don't want to be the one that stands up, and that's a perfect thing to put in report a concern. Hey, fifth period lunch, kids are throwing food at Johnny. Then we can go to fifth period lunch, and we can monitor that, and see, okay, it's good to put a last name so we know who we're looking for. But that type of stuff is really good to put on the report of concern and let your student know that that is available. And we'll talk about that in our dean's talks also with the kids. This is for later when we come back, but it's an important thing. For a lot of parents want to know this. Where do I drop off my child when we come to the building? So door 1, which is that front circle, so that's going to be one drop-off area. And then back by that athletic door is another drop-off area in the morning. Okay? And when we come back to the building, that we'll be entering from the front of the building and the back of the building. Those are the only 2 entrances that would be open. Pickup, it's also best. It's best to pick up in the front, even though there's a long line. If you pick up in the back, you do get tied up. The buses go in the back, so buses and parents are there at the same time. So you get caught in buses. That's up to you if you want to do that. But even though the line is long up front, you might want to do the front for pickup. Okay? And that's just some good information to know. Attendance. Like I said, you will still call the attendance line if your child can't participate. We have 9 parent excuse days allowed a semester. Okay? So that is, you call in, you say Johnny's sick, that goes as excuse call 1. Call in and just say Johnny's not feeling well, whatever. So up to 9. But at any point, if there's a doctor's note, or if you go to the dentist or anything like that, turn that in, because then that doesn't take one of your parent calls. Because if you call and say, Johnny's not going to be in school today, he has a doctor's appointment, we're going to mark it parent call until we get a copy of that doctor's excuse. Okay? So it will always go as parent call until we get documentation. So that's important for you to know. If, when we're in school, if they have an appointment to leave school, call in the morning, leave it on the voicemail. We'll have a pass available for your student to leave at that time. Okay. Vacation. We do have vacation forms and vacation approval here in District 155. So if you know, and even while we're on e-learning, if you are going to take a vacation, they're going to be gone, that vacation form is available, and fill that out, and then it gets turned into our office, and when you call, you just say, Sam's going on vacation, the form is already on file. And then we take that and we mark a vacation then for that time that you're gone. Okay? Yes. So the planned absence is 2. So you would still use a vacation form, but let's say your son or daughter is on a travel volleyball team, and they have a 3-day tournament, and they're going to miss school on Friday for that tournament. You would use one of these vacation forms for that. You don't want to use a parent call-in for something like that. If you know there's a planned absence going to happen, you're going to a wedding for, even if it's just a 3-day weekend and you're going to be gone one day, do that planned absence form. That's what they're for. Okay?
The other advantage to the planned absence form is your student has to, when they're back in the building, take it around to the teachers. So it's already helping them have the conversation because they won't be here. What will I be missing? And even get some of that homework ahead of time, which is nice.
Again, when we're back in the building, all medication has to be kept in the nurse's office, including over-the-counter medication. So no Tylenol, no ibuprofen, that cannot be kept on a person. It needs to be in the nurse's office. If it's something, let's say they call you and just say, I have a headache today, I just need some Tylenol, you can come up and you can administer that Tylenol to them. We cannot, unless it's in the nurse's office with the doctor's note. Okay, but they cannot have any medication on them unless it's approved by the nurse, which is like EpiPens and things like that that have health plans. Okay. Cell phones, like I said, students can have cell phones here in high school. Freshmen are only allowed to use them in their lunch period and in the hallways. So when we're back in the building, you don't want to be texting your child while they're in a class period. It's good to know when their schedules are because cell phones are not allowed, and we go through a process of teachers taking them, and then there's different consequences for that. Okay. We do have a dress code when we come back in the building, and we want, when your child is online, we want that dress to be appropriate. We did have some issues in the spring with some inappropriate dress online, and they have to turn off the video. But so it is something that we do need your help with. Again, just school appropriate in regards to what is revealing and not, and what's on the shirts is appropriate. Again, no drugs, alcohol advertised on the shirts, and we don't allow hats, so everyone is aware of that also. Now we're going back to the first.
Just a couple last slides, and then we're going to open it up for questions here. This is kind of atypical times, but I still think this is an important message here. As your student starts high school, and I should have started, I have 3 children of my own, a senior and a sophomore over at Central, and an 8th grader at Hannah Beardsley. And I think it is important that we do a paradigm shift as a parent. What drives me every day, this isn't next to my bed in a little frame. We are not just raising a child, but the adult he or she will become. And literally take that visual of those big shoes. We have 4 short years, guys. This is going to go so fast. So that they are where they need to be. And in order to do that, I like this small analogy kind of helps me. There was a mom that had a special needs student and kind of talked about these, with each skill that my student learns, there's these 4 phases. First we do it for them, then we do it with them, then we watch them, and I like to add and give them a ton of feedback, and then they do it independently. And the easiest way to think about this is when they learn to cross the street. So when they're a baby and they can't walk, you're literally carrying the baby across the street. By 2 years old, they're walking, but you're still holding that hand. You're doing it with them. You're holding that hand and you're walking them across the street. By hopefully 5, first time they ride that school bus, if they had to cross the street, my hope is you were standing on that front stoop and you were giving them a ton of feedback. Whoa, 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 Joey, did you look both ways? Hang on, come back. But you're standing on that stoop and you're giving them all the feedback they need to get safely across that street. By 14 or 15, I hope you too can safely cross the street. My message here is we have to think about this in every skill that they're learning in high school, academic and social. We really need to be at the watch and give them a ton of feedback so that they can do it independent. No more for or even with. And we give the same message to our teachers and our support staff. This is all of us working together. For them to have those shoes filled by 18 years old, we've really got to be in that watch and feedback phase. In order to do this, here's just a few quick pieces of advice. One, favorite term, successful failure. Successful failure to me is something that went wrong, but our students learned from it. Easy one here, typically in our dean's office is a large table. And on that table is the mom and dad drop-offs, the athletic shoes, the lunch, the physics project, the money, all of these things. And I stand up here as a parent first and foremost, so I'm not saying you guys do this and I didn't. This is me in it with you. But this is an important one. What might my student learn if I don't rescue them right now? You wanted to say something about that table, and I forgot what it was.
So that when we come back to school, instead of having that table inside our office,
We're going to pretend the table doesn't exist.
the table is going to be outside in the foyer, so that parents aren't coming in and we're not having all this materials in the building. So it will be out in the foyer. We always tell parents it's not a secure drop off. It is a place for you to put stuff and you let your child know that it's there. We don't hold on to it. The only thing we do hold on to is money, and that you would give to our secretary in the, through the window. But otherwise, all the materials will be on the table in the lobby.
And the thing I like to emphasize here without joking is truly they're going to learn through experience. So when they do and they mess up, think how we got to where we are in life. It's not about rescuing them from that mess up, it's what they learn in that. The second thing, encourage your student to do something different, not something better. And this is going to come out in this academic, even more so right now when they're learning Canvas on top of when do I need to be in class and what does that look like? And oh shoot, on that off day I did have an assignment. This is not going to go perfectly. Take that deep breath. Our goal with your student and where I want you on my team is when your student is frustrated and they're like, don't worry, mom, I'm going to do better next time. No, better is way too big. Better doesn't break it down. All I want them to do is one thing differently. So this didn't work for me, and I want them to be specific with you or with me. Hey, for the next 2 weeks, Mrs. Bird, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a little checklist of each Canvas thing I need to check on each day and literally cross it off. That's a big one we use in our household. So one thing very specific that they're going to do differently. Prepare your child for the path, not the path for the child. Anybody who's got an email from me knows that's in my signature page. This is an important one. As parents, I always think when they were little and they were in this little 5-star security car seat, our job was to protect our child. Now, you guys, your job is to prepare your child. So now, to that 5-star connection, you are safe as can be, it's a backpack. And in that backpack, we need to provide our students the tools that no matter what that condition is, no matter what that situation, I mean, you've got kids right now living in this. We never would have predicted this. So to fill that backpack, think about the tools they need. When I say this, this is the typical, and if you've done this, I'm not picking on you. Again, I'm a parent as well. But this is, you don't ask for the teacher change. You don't ask for the lunch that her 2 best friends are in because that would be easier for her. I have a really quick story. A senior now at Central who, when Hannah Beardsley, anybody goes to Hannah Beardsley, a majority of the kids come to Prairie Ridge. She was one of 7 girls that went to Central. So that summer was pretty rough. And as working in the school, she looked me in the eye every day. You can change this. You can transfer me. I believe in this, and she knows that. But it took 8 days of my daughter crying as I dropped her off at Central, and I'll own it, I cried too as I drove myself to Prairie Ridge. It took day 8 for her to look at me in tears and said, literally, thanks for knowing I can do this. She didn't know she could do it yet. It still sucked for her. But in the end, and it's funny, she was writing her college essay today, and it's all about this. My important part here as a parent is I can't keep making it comfortable and easy for you. How are you going to be prepared? I promise you I'm in it with you, and I will be there along the way. So don't change that condition. What are they learning from that? It absolutely affects their confidence that they need this to happen in order for me to be okay. We need to do the opposite. You're going to be okay because I'm with you, and we'll keep trying things to get you through that. 24-hour rule. Anybody ever hear this in sports or music or anything like this? Any of those coach or sponsors ever say, hey, 24-hour rule? Anybody want to say what it is? It's probably hard to not on the microphone. But 24-hour rule is, it is your student's responsibility when they have a question or concern to come to that teacher, the counselor, the dean, and your job is to encourage them. So when they come home and they say, this went wrong, I'm frustrated, I got the wrong grade, your wording is, talk to the teacher about that. Send them that email. Maybe proofread that email before they send it. 24-hour rule is once your student has had a response and you still have a concern 24 hours later, now you can get involved. But we really want to teach our kids to advocate for ourselves. And right now, I'd almost argue with the technology piece, it's almost easier for them because they don't have to, which kills me, but they don't have to go face to face with that teacher. Help them advocate for themselves and send that email. 24 hours later, emotions aside, now you can step in. This one's an important one to me because I'm a counselor, but anybody ever see the movie Inside Out? You know, the moral of that story was all emotions are important. And one of the lessons we do with students is kind of talking about this, but we've got to get away from that idea that there's bad emotions. And I also want to throw in there, we've got to get away from the words depression and anxiety. We need to talk more about emotions. I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm stressed. These are emotions they're going to feel right now, especially in these conditions. Use the vocabulary with them. Practice the vocabulary with them. If you have concerns, this is absolutely where we want you guys to reach out. And we're going to get creative in how we support students through this. But all emotions are important, even those uncomfortable ones. This kind of leads to my last one. One of the mottos in my house, I always say, you're not my problem to fix. Now that sounds horrible. Let me explain what this means. But this last one is when your student comes to you, first of all, you should be very happy and a little relieved that you have a relationship with your student, that they do come to you. So the fact that they're coming to you, pat yourself on the back. That's step number one. Step number two, ironically, is easier than what we do to ourselves. Step number two, just listen. That's why they're coming to you. When you guys think about when you go to your best friend or your spouse, we're going to pick on spouses for a second, I have to say to my husband, don't fix this, just listen. I just want to talk it out. That's what your student's doing. So step one, they're coming to you, that's good. But step two, just listen. And listen with the intent to understand. That's the important piece. Not with the intent to fix it for them. I want you to say quietly in your head, when your student comes to you, you're not my problem to fix, you're not my problem to fix. Don't say that loud because it sounds really bad. But when you say that, they aren't coming to you for the answers, you guys. They're coming to us because they trust us. They want to talk through this problem. Our job is easier. Our job is bite your tongue and be there with them, help them identify that emotion, and eventually they will see that other side and work to that problem solving piece. I think that's it. Yeah. So now what I'm going to do is you guys ask questions. I'm going to repeat them in here just so on the video. Yes.
How many students does each counselor have?
Sure. How many students does each counselor oversee? We have about anywhere from 360 to 370 students in our caseload, which feels like way too much to us. However, we've got 4 very passionate counselors. That's part of why we go in and do these lessons so we quickly can kind of get to know students and then build that individual relationship. Yes, you.
What about shop classes, hands-on classes?
Okay, I'm gonna let Ms. Leland answer this. But the question is, what about the shop or the hands-on classes during remote learning?
And that is listed in that district remote learning plan. And at this time, they're still going to be remote. They're going to be looking at ways to bring in hands-on classes throughout as we move forward. Okay, so there's no set plan yet on that, but that is something that administration is really looking at. What classes need to be coming in for some hands-on, and how will we go about doing that? So if your child's in one of those classes, that would be communicated to them if it's going to be a let's come in for something. The current plan is approved to go through October, and then it will be addressed. I think they said they'll be relooking at it at the end of September. There's a date in the plan.
So would you recommend not doing the shop class?
No, I would recommend still doing that. If that is an interest area, I mean, our teachers are working really hard to how to adapt those classes. In fact, like I saw quite there, so they're asking questions like, what can I give to the students to bring home? Like, can I give them this? Can I give them that? So really looking at how to integrate the best they can.
And especially there's some higher levels, so I don't want kids to leave it out and not then get to those higher level
Yeah.
ones.
So like if you're in autos 1, you're not gonna be able to go to autos 2 until you complete autos 1 and move through to get the college credit for autos, is auto seminar, so there's a whole bunch levels. So if they're involved in one of those classes currently, you do want them to stay in there. Because they will.
Are they gonna
earn
get the same
credit.
kind of credits that they get for remote learning as they do for in class?
Yes.
Typical class is a half credit, other than PE, band and choir are all a quarter. These students will be earning the exact same credit breakdown.
And I think that's a great question because it will, their grade, like I said, the grades will count. It will start their GPA, so their grade point average will start with this semester. And from history, we do a program called Top 25 Most Improved GPAs because once your GPA is set, it takes a lot to move it. So this semester is so important for our freshmen to do the best they can, which is why we really appreciate you coming here and being part of our partnership to move our students forward.
And this is the first lesson we do with freshmen, which we are going to do through that PE course. Typically, we would meet them face to face, but we'll be kind of breaking down what does the GPA look like, what does this mean. We walk through an actual student, and that'll be a part of that.
Okay, so the Chromebooks were picked up during registration.
Did you go downstairs to get your books and stuff?
Okay. So, okay, yeah, so we'll talk, but basically
No big
Chromebooks
deal.
are issued through the registration process, and we, if your freshman didn't get one, someone will be contacting everybody who did not go through registration to set up alternate times to go through registration or pick up materials if the materials weren't present at registration.
And then school supply list.
Oh, school supply list there. No, so we do not have a school supply list. Each teacher is specific in regards to what your child will need. So the most specific typically is math. Whatever math class they're in, they'll advise what type of calculator they'll need. Sometimes they'll need a higher level calculator. I have a sophomore in high school, and when he was a freshman, they said, "Oh, you got to buy him this calculator." I'm like, "What?" So that will come out when they meet with their teachers that first week in regards to
And the only
specific
thing I
supplies.
add to that in general with students, we're going to tell you whatever organizational system works for you. Do I like one big binder and then the different, the dividers? Or do I want a folder for each school? It is okay. There's not going to be specifics of what kind of organization system, but I definitely would recommend dividers so they have something per class or separate notebooks for each class. There will be very few additional things that teachers ask for. It's your pens and pencils of preference.
Should we have gotten the calculators when we did
Yeah, that's my
registration or
question.
not?
No,
When
so
do those
Mrs. Gilbert did, who's the division leader who kind of that communication came through. If you ordered a computer or a calculator, hopefully she said they'll have them next week before classes start.
I know
And
I was coming to pick them up.
they will email a system to come pick them up.
Okay.
Yep.
That was my question.
Yep.
Okay, right
So
here.
with all the recent changes, obviously, I know we were supposed to be doing the hybrid or the remote thing. So now all children will start on the 17th, correct?
Yes, so that question was, will all children start on the 17th with the changes? Yes, all students will start that day one and go to every period, because it's a Monday, so they will go to every period on that first day of school.
And they'll receive information on their Chromebook on how to
Yes.
do all that and log in.
Yes, and they will have contact by every teacher on Friday. So every academic teacher will contact them through, I believe it's email, but they will get contact from their teachers on Friday.
To their personal emails or to their school emails?
School.
The school email.
Yeah, so school email is going to be, everything comes through school email for students. It is so important that they check their D155 email
And I
on a
would say
regular basis.
starting Monday. We were
Yes.
just talking to kids about you got tomorrow, you got the weekend, you got a nice long weekend. But starting Monday, I would just practice for them of getting up and checking their email. They're not likely to have any communication before Thursday or Friday, but I just want that built in for these kids because all of a sudden it's gonna.
I was gonna say, because I don't even think my son knows that he even has a school email. So,
Yeah,
and
mine
that's
does.
what, right. So I
Yeah.
was like, this is all new to me as well. So I'm like taking notes here. And so,
Yeah.
And typically we walk them through this and we've
Yeah.
right, right.
So
And
that
then-
is on, like what I said before, their email address is on their Chromebook, so that they can see that. So everyone knows also that bar on their Chromebook, that is their ID also. So we use that to, like, when they're in school, we scan their either ID or their Chromebook for pay for lunch. So anything with that payment that comes, we just scan those, and that goes right to our Skyward system. Also for attendance purposes, like in their large group, like in study halls and things like that, we just scan their Chromebook or their ID, and that logs their attendance. So those are two important factors.
Okay, so we talked about the email. How exact our child opens their Chromebook? Email, they just magically.
Google.
So, yeah, I was just gonna say,
What's
so
the
where
password? How do they get in?
so it's a Gmail account.
Okay,
So they're gonna go to their Chrome, like their Google Chrome, and open up, and it will say email. Like that's one of the apps, and the kids probably
Built
know.
on there.
Like
It's already on there.
yeah, the kids.
what's their password? Is that?
That was on their Chromebook.
They don't have a password. So when they're
Yeah.
when you're using their Chromebook, and do you guys know this? But yeah. So when they open their Chromebook, your kid can teach you this is good. Can I stop the
They'll know
technology?
what to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, it'll be one of their.
Why aren't they able to change their own password in the Chromebook?
They don't need a password. Oh, like the initial to get into it? They can.
No, every time you log in, every time you open the thing, it needs a password too.
Yeah, you
can
can't
open it.
change
It
it.
wouldn't let you
It
change
didn't let me.
it. Wouldn't let them
Oh,
change
it will. I don't know if that's like you can absolutely change password.
Because it's
Yeah.
silly password.
Yeah.
Another question?
Yes, it has to do with, ties it to all the new changes now. So along with everything else, with starting on the 17th, can you explain again this alternating class thing on certain dates? I didn't
Yeah.
quite get that, just so that I
Yeah,
know
we're gonna go
when I
back. We'll go back to that screen.
Because originally, like my son, for instance, was going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying
And
to understand that they're not doing all the classes every day.
No.
So that was new to me.
Yeah.
And
So-
if anybody does need to leave, you guys, we don't take it rudely. We understand.
Yeah. So if you look at that graph,
Mhm.
okay, so Monday, every day they're gonna go to every class, and those are all a half hour long. However, Tuesday, Thursday are odd periods. So if they have a class first, third, fifth, seventh, or ninth,
Okay.
those are the classes they will attend on Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay.
If it's an even class, they will attend those on Wednesday and Friday. So, for example, I have English first period, study hall third period, PE fifth period, lunch seventh, and biology ninth. So I would then be free from 9:20 to 10:25 because that's my study hall. I will also be free from 12:15 to 1:30 because that is my lunch. But I will have to be on my computer at 8 o'clock. I'll have to be on my computer at 10:40, and I'd have to be on my computer at 1:35. So when you look at that schedule, those free times are still free, but the class times are when you have to log in.
And then are those free times to be used potentially for the even day homework type thing?
It could be. So that is going to be that whole management time. So just even like here, like when they have study hall, we don't monitor. So let's say that, what did I say? They had study hall third period. So freshman study hall is typically a large room with 50 students in there and someone supervising. So we don't monitor how they use that time. So some of them can use it. Some students use it very effectively. Some students use it watching YouTube videos for the whole 40 minutes.
And I would say, this is going to be a little trial and error in that side where I said, don't do better, do something different.
Right.
With trial and error, I think your individual student has to see, oh my gosh, I just need to walk around the house 10 times. Like I need to step away from this because I don't
We do
like
that as adults too.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say I don't like being on my computer, so I do that. But I think a piece of that is him or her kind of gauging. You know what? Now I need a 15-minute break, but they have an hour and 10 minutes. I'm gonna come back in 20 minutes, and I am gonna sit down for half an hour and just get some of this done. But treating it, those free periods are their study hall. So either they're doing it then, or they're doing it at 3 o'clock when they're done, or 5 o'clock. I know there was a kind of follow-up question.
Yep. Yeah. Well, some students might only have that 15 minutes to eat if they have all even classes. But they might have a study hall and then yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Additionally, that teacher is going to be on, for 30 minutes. There's going to be some engagement. It doesn't mean they can't have a snack there as soon as they're off to do some practice and we're back in 15 minutes. They can eat during that time too.
This is irrelevant for right now, but they're allowed to watch YouTube videos during study hall.
Well, we don't monitor that they're working. So if they're assigned to so basically they're monitored they can't talk.
But they can be on the phone.
They cannot be,
Freshman study.
not in freshman study hall, they cannot be on their phone. They can be on their Chromebook.
Oh, but they could be watching a YouTube video on the Chromebook.
Yes.
Now, Ms. Langland is awesome. If there's ever concerns about what your student is doing on their Chromebook at home or at school, you can anonymously let us know and we can get involved because it is a school issued device.
Yes. So we do have access, but we only look at that if we're concerned. So if there's a safety concern, I'll look up what the students' Chromebook usage is. On this remote learning part, if students are not logging in, I'll be able to, we'll check. Are they logging in, just not logging into their classes, but they're using their Chromebook for other purposes? I'll be able to see that. So to know that it's not a technology issue, that it's more of a student motivation issue.
And again, they're going to make some errors, and we're here for that. Watch and give feedback. But if we get a lot of feedback from home and at school and things aren't better, we do have capabilities of shutting things off as well.
Where's the report of concern page?
So if you go on our PR website and you go under parents, there's a button, like all those little rectangles. One is report of concern. And like I said, it does, and there's the same tab as under students, has the same block.
So I just kind of scrolled over parents, and then it's down here, report a concern.
Or if you open up that page. But yeah, so that's what it looks like. And there's that drop-down menu in regards to what type of concern it is.
You can also just click on parents, and then you'll see all those boxes and be able to go to it.
And then the updated guide is also in here for parents to use.
So that is on the district side. Yep. So let's control that.
Sorry.
I love that on the camera. My face is like this giant thing right now. Well,
yeah.
Do you go down here?
Mm-hmm. And that's the full remote learning plan. And you'll see this.
That's the new one, correct?
That's the new one. So you'll see the slides I had on there are directly from this. There's a lot of other information on there, but I just pulled those 3 slides directly off.
Did they send an email with that update? They did?
I believe they did.
They did. As a parent,
I didn't think I did either.
I didn't get the registration email. One of my friends had to forward it to me. That's the only reason I was able to register for it.
So one of the things Chuck went on that Skyward page to make sure we have your correct email addresses. And that's something you guys can update on so if you change emails, if you change cell phones, if you want to change your emergency contacts, that's something that you control on your end of Skyward.
I've gotten some emails and then I haven't gotten others. So
the other thing is, honestly, and this is something that we're trying to make sure it doesn't happen, that it doesn't could check your spam. Because sometimes when we send too many, when the district sends too many emails, like it gets coded as spam because we've sent too many at one time.
Right, or they're coming from different people, like some come from the district. maybe
Yes,
someone from
and we're
the-
trying to
right, so-
set up a schedule so they don't go to spam, so like PR is only sending them at this time, or, you know, so we're trying to manage that, but that does sometimes happen that they go to spam.
Emails that are sent out to regular emails also show up as last item in Skyward.
Does not.
Does not.
Kind of like parent view did, like
Right.
the messages, yeah.
Yep.
Who did you say to contact, like I can get into Skyward, but when I go to my child's schedule, it says, schedule found.
So the schedules are
That's a
not
great question.
available on Skyward until Friday at 4. Like tomorrow at 4, those will be live. Any student that came through got a copy, but they'll be live. So you're actually good.
Is there a Skyward app?
There is.
And we encourage students to download that Skyward app so that they can regularly check their grades and things like that.
Do you have access to get into Canvas, or can we do more Skyward and then students?
And again, back to kind of watch and give feedback power there, having 2 girls at Central and I didn't really know Canvas. It is okay to sit with your student and say, well, I'm concerned because there's missing assignments. No, none are missing, Mom. Well, why don't you show me? Jump on, let's play with this together because I've never been on Canvas. So your kid's sitting behind there, but yes, get in there.
But you don't have individual access to Canvas. So.
What's the last time on Canvas submitting and then getting to Skyward? Is there
There's, go ahead.
So when they grade the assignment, it typically is pretty quickly that it moves right over. So once they grade it in Canvas, it will move into Skyward. So they should be pretty consistent with that.
And I would say, and this is not your children, this is children in general, biggest thing I get as a counselor is a parent saying, well, the teacher still hasn't updated the grades. Joey told me 24 hours, they're pretty updated, maybe 48. So not that your child is lying to you, but I would say there's some error there. So it has been at least 2 days and they're still saying, no, Mom, I turned it in. That's an okay time to sit with your kid and say, hey, why don't you send this to so-and-so an email and let's follow up with that.
This is kind of a combination question, concern as a parent, and I'm sure most of us have freshmen as well. Is the school doing something and the teachers together trying to develop something for this remote learning now for incoming freshmen? Usually, I mean, it's such a big year to be coming into school, not knowing anybody. Well, obviously, not coming into school yet, but not knowing anyone and not meeting anybody and not being able to meet the teachers, relate with the teachers, kind of get their bearings on where they're at. And this is going to majorly affect their grades as well, in my opinion, as a parent, right? Which was one of the reasons why I was one of the parents who signed up for the hybrid originally, because I figured, hey, 2 or 3 days is better than no days, is what I thought to myself.
So one of the things that we are, I mean, for our building, I know we're focusing on, we have focused on building relationships. And that is going to be a key factor for this semester, and how to build that classroom community remotely.
Right.
And really focusing on that SEL, the social emotional part of learning. And that's, we think, that might be something that teachers do on, those Mondays, those 30 minutes. But it is something that we are focusing on, and we're doing in-service on that next week of how to build that classroom community in this remote learning, because we know it is integral. The other thing that I do still encourage, we encourage it when we're in person, we encourage it, and still encourage it now, is for your child to get involved. Okay, we do still have things going on. So there are some fall sports that are still occurring. There will still be activities. We had that activity fair, and so they might do remote. Like I know they just did all the interviews for the student council officers, which are all upperclassmen, so the freshmen aren't available for that. But there still will be student council meetings that will be held remotely. So they'll get emails on that stuff. If they put their name down on any of those lists when they came through that activity fair. So they should be reached out to for that. And that's one of the things that I think the counselors will cover in when they go into the PE classes also, and talk to the freshmen about that. Because that is such a key factor and such a big part of the high school experience. And we have wonderful activities and athletics here. So we really, really encourage that continued participation.
And I love your question because as a counselor, we're probably struggling the most because freshman year is when we do so much with them.
Right.
We bring them to our offices, we show them, there's a lot
And I
of
just remember
relationships
too myself, and I'm like, oh my god, it was such a key time in my life.
to get engaged right
Yeah.
away. So one of the advantages we have is we will be using PE since there's not PE to do more lessons. The only thing I ask of you guys is, again, you have the eyes and the ears on them right now where we don't get to. So anytime you have a concern, and it doesn't have to be life-threatening, it's just, hey, I just noticed this. Please reach out to us because we're hoping to be able to get more and more creative of whether we meet in the parking lot or drive up. We were talking about drive up count,
Right.
some creativity. So if you have concerns, please let us know. We're going to eventually be back, and I want to build that relationship with that student, but we will continue to try to get creative following the laws and regulations.
Right. I just don't want it to affect their overall grades. I mean, like you said, this is going to stay with them for the rest of their life. So what's happening now is not something that most kids are experiencing or that we've even experienced.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do like to tell, in the spring, what I emphasize so much to my students is all of my professional training is now online. I wish it wasn't. College classes, they are going to have some online. So what they're learning right now isn't for right now. It is a life thing that they will have. How do we help them figure this out, knowing there's going to be some slip-ups, and then kind of go from there. The lessons we do with freshmen, it is really how do I get involved in that personal social thing, but then the academic side, not threatening, just, hey, this is just mathematically how this all works. So as you struggle, it's not, I'm going to do better, it's I'm going to do this specific thing. That's freshman year. That didn't work either, Mrs. Berg. That didn't work either, Mrs. Berg, in getting them there. One of the most powerful things and the fun part of our job, I always say there's not any decision your child's going to make in high school, unless it's illegal, that's a make or break situation. Class, no test, nothing. We've got to keep emphasizing that. When I go to helping a student really be matched to what's next for them, best part of my job, this isn't a check mark, woohoo, I got that. This is a fit. And so if my kids struggle in math here and in math here, it's not, oh crap, their future's over. I'm going to continue to match them into a institution, career, education, whatever that has where their strengths are. So we really need to help these kids. There's not one decision that they're going to make that's going to make or break this. This is that watching, giving them feedback, and we'll get from there.
Is the difference there? My husband was Mr. Level, but is the district already preparing for it the entire year? Ends up being online.
The question was just, is the district preparing for a whole year online? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, that is done at an administrative level that we're not.
We're not invited to them.
So, I mean, right now, if you look at the plan, like I said, it goes through October. We hope to be back in hybrid at some point, definitely. I mean, that would be the goal to move it to that next.
And I think that's a powerful thing as a parent. I'm struggling with this in my own house too, is knowing that I think, at the end of the school board meeting, I think the president did a very good job of there's association, there's community, and there's kind of that administration school board. We all got to work together. This isn't going to go great. There's going to be mistakes, and the power there is for us to show young people you're not always going to agree. It's not always going to be your plan, but how do we work together knowing that truly their interest is what's in all of our hearts.
And I think that before we go to that hybrid, we would go to, the answer to your question, to getting some of those hands-on groups in the building first. So because that is in the board plan to look at that, as the initial movement. Yes, thank you.
So the question is, if a student is rethinking the class choices they have, when do they need to let their counselor know? The sooner the better, only because I always remind students the classes they want aren't offered all 9 periods. Like in their head, they're like, well, wait a minute, why didn't that just swap itself? So the sooner the better, so that we can move things around and make sure that everything fits. We are back for good. So all of next week, we're back. The sooner they can communicate with their counselor and they can just email us and we can play around with some options and then email them back. But ideally by the 17th, so they've got a full week here, their schedule is secure just because of Canvas and all these things. The one thing I will say, some students take band or choir, or some students have said, hey, I don't want 2 study halls, I want an additional class in there. I never want plug your ears for a second, but I never want a student to take a class with the intent to drop it. That being said, certainly under these circumstances, but even if we're all in the building, students have 9 weeks to drop a class with absolutely no consequence. We delete, off the record, never shows up. I want my students to explore electives. There's enough English, math, science, all these classes that I'm trying to fit in for them. I need them to have the balance of those electives and trying different things. So if your student takes on too much, oh my gosh, I don't have a lunch, the lunch question over there, I don't have a lunch. If they take on too much or they don't have an interest in something, because online the description looked interesting, but I'm not interested, they have 9 weeks, all the way until the first week in October to let us know and we drop it. So if they are sure they want a definite class change, I would say next week have them communicate with us so that we can have it all tightened up. But if they end up taking something in 6 weeks into it, it's not what they're interested in, they can still communicate with us. We just wouldn't be able to add something.
Any other questions? We want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
We
very,
really
very much.
appreciate it. We will
We're in this
send
together.
out the video.
I'm going to send this out by Monday because this will take me a little bit to figure this out. So I'm going to send out the video, the PowerPoint, and then again, contact information follow-up stuff. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for still doing that.
Oh.
And